Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gregory Anne Cox, and I am your guest speaker today for a 20-minute breakout workshop. What we're going to be doing today is learning about the 5 rebelliously simple habits that will help you lose weight. And this is brought to you by Over 40 Females. And this is one of the most amazing groups. I'm so glad that I found them and joined, I guess it's about 18 months ago now. They have weekly educational teleseminars, like these short ones and a little bit longer ones. And they cover everything from fashion to finance, building your business, spirituality, and a host of other subjects that you can benefit from, whether it's life or business. So if you want to find out more and you're not familiar with the group, go to over40females.com. You can see the link there on that slide and join as a member. As I said, I did, and I really love it. It's a very energetic group, and there's a great mix of people whenever I go to the meetings. And in the online forums and the profiles, I meet lots of cool women and have had some, little joint ventures and interesting conversations. So it really is wonderful, and it's less than $17 a month to be a member. I mean, you can't do that at a lot of these kinds of networking opportunities. So without further ado, since I only have 20 minutes and I want to give you all the good stuff, let's get started. So again, this is the 5 rebelliously simple habits that will help you lose weight and look and feel your best at midlife and beyond. My name is Gregory Anne Cox. I'm a lifestyle mentor and a midlife women's wellness expert. So I want to tell you what we're going to cover today, just so you know what to look for. The one nutrient you need more of to stay strong and lean. The one nutrient you must embrace to fire up your metabolism. Why not figuring this out will keep the weight on and zap your energy. The wild card you want to master that not only makes the difference between lean and not, but helps you go from fatigued to fabulous. And believe it or not, there is a magic bullet, and I trust Harvard for a lot of things, and they say so, to ease all the ravages of aging, including wrinkles. Now, many of you don't know who I am from the hole in the ground, so I'm just going to give you a quick update. So my first career was in food. I was one of the early graduates of the Culinary Institute of America. There were 3 of us women in a class of 50, and let me tell you, it was great and it was challenging, and I loved it. I did food for about 27 years. During that time, I was lucky enough to work with a heart surgeon, and we created the first heart-healthy quick food restaurant in the United States in San Diego called Daly's Fit and Fresh, and he will come back up later in our presentation. You can see all the things I'm certified in. What's really important is that now I specialize in midlife women's health and life challenges, because sometimes people come to me for help. Well, not sometimes, all the times. Anytime we have a challenge, there's always something else that's also going on, right? It's our relationship with ourselves, with others, on and on. So that's what I work with women on. And I love to help people get back to feeling good, right? If we don't feel well, our energy is low, we're not putting ourselves out in the world as well as we could be, and then we're missing out on stuff, and that makes me sad. So I help women look good and feel good now and age youthfully. But here's a little bit of truth, because I'm a big truth teller. I was once the fat kid, and food was the enemy. I spent years trying to be thin by doing all the wrong things, including food disorders, and it wasn't until I decided to listen to my body and do things that felt good to me for my life that I began to have peace and get healthy. And enough about me for now. How did we get here anyway? How do we find ourselves here, a nation that is sicker and fatter than ever, which we are? And how is it possible that women like you and I, otherwise smart women who are trying to do what it takes, still find themselves tired, battling extra weight, and wishing they felt like themselves again? Well, the answer has 3 parts. In some cases, we don't have access to what's really true because there are a lot of profit-driven marketing messages out there, and it's making a lot of noise and diverting us from the truth. Then sometimes we have a little bit of a closed mind. Our mind isn't open to new ideas. That makes it hard for us to move into a place of power for our bodies and our health. And it's hard to figure out what works for you. We are so used to having people say, buy this book, do this program, it's paleo, it's kale, it's green smoothies. You have to find out what works for you, or what you're doing won't stick. It doesn't satisfy you. So let's start with cows. The dietary prescription that most Americans follow was formulated in the 60s by the United States Department of Agriculture. This is the same group that's responsible for telling farmers how to fatten cattle. The science they use to determine these recommendations, which they're still telling us today, are based on the erroneous belief that fat makes us fat, grains keep us healthy, and vegetable oils are preferable to butter. Now, I don't want to pick on just the government because it's also big food, right? There's a great book called Salt, Sugar, and Fat by a guy named Michael Moss. And in the book, he writes, this is a quote, "The food companies, for instance, willingly admit, albeit behind closed doors, that the health crisis we have today is an acceptable byproduct of the sale of goods to the people who want them." Now, that's harsh, and I don't want to be a byproduct, but sadly, that represents a good portion of the corporate food manufacturers. But, it's not just the government and big food. There's personal responsibility, right? It's easy to blame things these days. We live in a crazy culture, and it's full of toxins and noise and disease, and, oh, my gosh, it's overwhelming, and it's not my fault, right? Well, sometimes it really isn't our fault if we don't have all the information we need. On top of that, we have stories and fears and false beliefs about what life will be like if we change. And so we defend our limitations. We stick with what we know and have always believed. And at midlife, it becomes even easier to stick what we know and what we've always believed. But in the world of rebellious wellness, I ask my clients to keep their minds open to new ideas and new science and be willing to take a path they might not ordinarily have chosen. What kind of new science? Like genes are not destiny, which is the premise for my first book, Your Genes Do Not Determine the Size of Your Genes. If you can embrace that you're not a victim of your genetics, like it runs in the family so you're going to get it, a whole new world opens up for you. Now look, I just want you to be clear about this. In case you think I came in with some uber motivation gene or something, I did not. Doing the right thing each day can be a challenge. I know it just the way you do. And I do this for a living, and there are still days I wake up and I just know it's going to be a chicken wing kind of day. And those wings will not have roamed free, and the celery will not be organic, but they will be fatty and juicy and spicy and delicious, and they taste really good with a beer on the side. They fall into the 20% of daily choices I allow myself because I have a plan for the other 80%. I can have wings and wine and lazy days some of the time because I choose to do what it takes the rest of the time. And by the way, what it takes does not take a lot of time, and it isn't hard. But even if it was hard, isn't pain and sickness harder? Isn't not knowing what lies ahead as you age scarier than learning how to feed yourself and take good care of yourself? Okay, so what do you do during the 80%? It is different because of biochemical individuality, but there are some things that are common to everybody, and I have boiled it all down to 5 things, the 5 simple things to do every single day. Are you ready? I hope you got a pen. Okay, you have now heard this one. When I first started teaching this, it was radical. Now it's pretty common. This is number 1. I want you to fall in love with fat. I'm thrilled that it is part of the mainstream conversation. But let me tell you, girls, it is one of the hardest things I deal with women. We are so used to no fat, low fat. Fat is fattening. It's not, but this is really hard for you guys to get. But if you do get it, not only do you have an easier time losing weight if your diet is full of healthy fats, but your skin is soft, your nails and hair look good. And truthfully, you have more energy. So let me tell you a little story about fat and why it's so important. Do you remember in the 80s when the Snackwells revolution was here and we had all these low and non-fat foods? It was predicated because the government went to the food companies and said, there's too much fat in Americans' diets. We want you to create products that have less fat. Can you do that? Well, absolutely. And the rest is history, right? There were tons, and still are, of low-fat and non-fat foods. And in fact, it worked. What the government had hoped for worked. The fat percentage in Americans' diets went down. But something really strange happened. The weight of the nation as a whole went up. And another thing went up, the rates of depression. And do you know why? Because the brain needs fat to function. And so do your sex hormones. So eat the whole darn egg. Will you stop with those egg white omelets? Your significant other might just thank you. So what is a healthy fat? So here's a slide that represents, first of all, what are not healthy fats. I wanted to just get them out of the way. And it doesn't matter that canola oil isn't front and center here. It is included in this list. Vegetable processed oils that are liquid at room temperature, with the exception of olive oil, macadamia, avocado, some really good, healthy, food-based oils. I mean, yes, corn is a food, but by the time it gets in the bottle, there's no corn nutrition left. These are the kind of oils that you want to get rid of from your cabinet. All the fats that you like butter, meat, avocado, they have two things in common. You've been told they're bad for you, and you crave them because we're genetically programmed to want them. They are the most efficient and healthiest form of of fuel for the body. Now, number two, which goes right along with fat, which is why I slid it in here, is this slide represents both fat and protein. So number two is think protein at every meal and snack. Women are notoriously bad at getting enough protein, and it's something that the body relies on. All of our hormones need protein. And I wanted to use this slide to show you how easy it is to get healthy fat and protein at every meal and snack because nature does all the work for us. Look at the egg, the beautiful egg yolk there. That's the fat. Look at the nuts. Nuts have fat. They also have protein. Fish, you can see the fat in the salmon. The beans also have both. And meat, of course. I put beef on this slide intentionally because a lot of people are afraid of saturated fat. And by now, again, the conversation is coming around. Saturated fat is not going to kill you. It is not creating heart disease in your body, and it's not killing you with cholesterol. Coconut products have saturated fat, and we know now that coconut is one of the healthiest foods that we can use, right? So, again, why do you need protein? Because it sustains you in all areas of the body's growth and repair, and it helps your energy levels. Like fat, it does not raise blood sugar, and we're going to get to why that's a good thing in another minute. Growth hormones, sex hormones, your metabolism, in short, everything the human temple relies on needs protein in adequate amounts. If you have enough on board of these two things all day, you'll have more consistent energy, okay? Number three, I want you to learn to balance your blood sugar, and you do not need a doctor's degree or a science degree to do this. It just simply means eating foods, not too much of them, that nourish and feed your cells, not overwhelm them. Because when we're feeding our gut, we're really feeding our cells. All of that food gets broken down to nutrition that we use on a cellular level. Now, there are a number of things besides food that can unbalance blood sugar, and I'll tell you more about that as we go on. But, of course, food is a big thing, right? And we can't avoid food. We eat throughout the day because we get hungry. The body, it's just the way we're designed. So why do you want to balance your blood sugar? Again, it comes down to consistent energy whenever you need it. Not only that, but your cravings will disappear. Blood sugar swings drive cravings because when there's too much blood sugar, then we get too much insulin. Chances are there's too much cortisol. All of this stuff is floating around in our system causing cravings up and down, up and down. We also tend to put on more weight because insulin drives fat storage. It's a storage hormone. The other good thing is your moods will be more manageable. You'll sleep better, and if weight loss is something you want to do, it gets easy peasy if you just learn to manage your blood sugar. Okay, speaking of blood sugar, I want to mention one of my favorite books. This is a picture of Dr. Mark Hyman's Blood Sugar Solution cookbook because I snapped the wrong photo. You don't need to get the cookbook unless you want to buy his cookbook, but the book itself, the Blood Sugar Solution, is a comprehensive guide to understanding what it takes to balance blood sugar. There are quizzes in there to find out where you are, all that kind of good stuff. And I want to give you a quote from this book because I was actually shocked at how much an impact high blood sugar and sugar has on us. He says, sugar in all its forms is the root cause of our obesity epidemic. You name it, it's caused by sugar. Cancer, dementia, type 2 diabetes, depression, even acne, infertility, impotence, and heart disease, one of my bugaboos, are caused by sugar. Now, reversing the rates of heart disease in this country is part of my mission, and it all started 20 years ago. Let me ask you this. How many of you have ever seen a human heart beating outside the body? In another career, in another lifetime I mentioned about my food career, I had the opportunity to watch open heart surgery so that I could see the effects of lifestyle choices on the heart. I stood right at the head of the operating table. The patient's name was Sheila. She was being prepped for a quadruple bypass as I stood there. Sheila was only 64 years old. Now, just to bring this back into reality, because we talk about heart surgery and heart disease all the time as though it were no big deal, before you get to the heart, let me remind you that the breastbone must be sawn in half. They use something like a Williams-Sonoma fancy jigsaw to do that. So they do that, and then an hour later they've cut through everything and, done all that they need to do, and suddenly Dr. Daly, I mentioned him earlier, was holding this woman's heart in his hand and showing it to me, and it was barely beating. He showed me the extra fat, the tissue damage, and the blockages. And in that moment, I understood that this daily habits thing is not just an abstract concept. what we eat, whether or not we move, how we manage our stress, and how much sleep we get, all shows up on the one muscle we cannot live without. Now, here's the sad part about heart disease. According to the Scripps Institute for Integrative Medicine, heart disease is the most preventable of all lifestyle diseases. And yet it's still the number one killer of women. 4 women die every 5 minutes from a preventable disease. It can sneak up on those of us who think we don't have time to take care of ourselves, or that we can have all the time in the world to turn it around. Hey, I'll start Monday. It happens when we aren't telling ourselves the truth about the choices we're making. So let's move on to number 4. Number 4 on our list of the Power 5 is sleep. Every good day starts the night before. Every successful weight loss effort starts with a good night's sleep. Blood sugar is easier to keep in range when we sleep well, and conversely, if we have too much circulating, which causes too much insulin, it can interrupt our sleep. Now here's the weight loss part. Lack of sleep messes with your appetite hormones. It increases your hunger hormones. It decreases your appetite-suppressing ones. Add in what happens next is cravings for more carbs and sugar, and you can see what a mess we create when we don't turn off the darn TV and phones and tablets. Not to mention lower productivity. I don't know how many of you are responsible for your own bottom line like I am, but low productivity does not sound profitable to me. Okay, number 5. This would not be a talk on health, weight loss, or anything otherwise if I didn't mention exercise. Oh, no, we were doing so well. We had extra fat. We were sleeping in. We were having sex. And now she's going to talk about the dreaded exercise. Well, I'm sorry. And here comes Harvard, as I mentioned earlier. Harvard says exercise is the closest thing we have to a magic bullet when it comes to slowing down all of the consequences of aging, including wrinkling. Every movement counts. More is not necessarily better. And what's the best form of exercise? It is the one you'll do. Okay, so you've got now your 5 power tips and a bonus. Fall in love with fat. Think protein throughout the day. Balance your blood sugar. Make sleep a priority. Move your butt. 80% of the time you do what it takes, and 20% of the time life includes cake. I know I went through things really quickly, and you may have questions, or you just may want to learn more about this kind of stuff. So there are 2 ways that you can do this. One, you can reach out to me, Gregory at rebelliouswellness.com. Send me an email. If you want to get on the phone, we can do that. Or 2, you can go to my website. I right now have 2 full chapters plus the preface and introduction of my book, Your Genes Do Not Determine the Size of Your Genes. It's 12 chapters of myths that I take apart and give you the truth. So that is the story, rebelliouswellness.com. Go there, download those 2 chapters instantly. You'll be put on my newsletter list, which is really fun. And contact me, Gregory at rebelliouswellness.com. Now, before I forget, I want you to remind you not to forget to check out over40females.com as well if you are new to this group. Find out how you can connect with other midlife women from around the world. And if you're on the Northeast, like I am, or anywhere in the path of, I don't know, what are they calling it, Jody? It's got some name. Snowmageddon 2, please be well and stay safe. Till next time.